Thanks, Dan. Okay. Yeah, thanks. Okay. The mentoring program is relatively new. It was started by Alyssa and Brian, and I took over after them. And we have Marius and Dan and Wes who help match people, and then we take people on site too. Basically, the program is on site only. That's what it works like today. People sign up, and they should sign up ahead of time, but a lot of times they don't. These are newcomers only. And a lot of times they don't sign up, and they'll ask for a mentor right on site. So it can get a little crazy that first, that day. And so we can talk about that. Is that really how we want to do it? If they come beforehand, then the IETF Secretariat will arrange a phone call between the two people, etc. And then that's really smooth. But I'm going to say probably it's been running kind of half and half, as to half people sign up before, half people sign up after.
Do you want comments now or?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Scott Mansfield Erickson. I've been participating in the mentoring program, and what I've seen is that the matches, and this is just my experience, I'd be interested to hear what other people think. The experience that I've had with matches that happened before the IETF meeting is that I don't know if it's I scare them off or whatever, but it's the same. They just seem to go away. I mean, out of the 3 or 4 of them that I've done, I've only had one person that actually came to the meeting. And so it is, to me, much better if you spring us on them when they get here, because they're already here and they can't run away.
So what happens is that you were matched, but it never took. They never. Yeah, so there's another. I'm just going to tell you, there's been a lot of confusion. There's been a lot of confusion. Like we had one this time. He signed up for the program, but he's actually not coming until next time. And we're like, what? Because we were looking for him. Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion. Having said that, I'm just going to tell you, and people can speak up too. If it's happened, we have some people here who've been through the program, and I think that it's really worked for them. So just but let me know, those of you guys who've been through it. I think they've liked it. Yeah.
Sorry, Scott Mansfield again. I do want to say that yes, the one that did actually come and was able to be part of the mentoring program is now actually a VP of one of the ISOC chapters. So
wow.
It is it does really work, and I think it's an important thing for us to continue to do.
Hello, Marius Georgescu. I stand well as a proof that the mentoring program has worked, and I think there are many other examples also that I know of. I think one suggestion I would have is somehow combine the two programs, because we had there was so much confusion.
Next slide.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna pretty soon. I'll go over there and start taking notes of what needs to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to comment on this confusion part. It may not be only confusion; it may actually be a real need. So I met someone in Buenos Aires. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the IETF, and he was going to come to the Buenos Aires meeting for the IETF next year. And asked me, how can he get in touch with someone who could mentor him now, talk about, interesting topics from his perspective. And I didn't really have a good answer.
Oh,
so,
very, very
I mean,
interesting.
it's not that, it's not only the meetings, it's also the rest of it. So that kind of need may exist.
Yeah. So pre-IETF. Pre-attendance. Yeah, that's a really good session. Yeah.
Well, actually,
Karen?
If you've got further slides that are going to talk more about
we've got more slides, but go ahead and then yeah.
Because I was going to say, partially in response to Scott, I've mentored a number of times, not the last couple of meetings, but before that, and the ones that were matched in advance, a couple of them worked pretty well. One of them didn't work at all, and in one particular, for 2 or 3 IETFs, I did the matching.
Right. Remember, thank you.
And I know at one point we actually matched 2 colleagues from the same company because it wasn't clear what they were from. And when I introduced them at the meet and greet, it was like, oh yeah, we work for the same company. I think a little bit more information up front about why you might want to mentor, a little bit more information. That the current questionnaire doesn't provide enough guidance on.
Yeah, that totally good point, Karen. I might as well just the whole method, the whole way we do everything. Yeah, really good topic, Karen. I'll just say the whole way people sign up to be mentors and the people who sign up to be mentees, it's all quite informal. It's people sign up, and a lot of times I just will tell you too is if I run out, you guys might have seen a note I sent out. It's like, you guys, because what I try to do is I try to have like 10 or 15 for the meeting, because otherwise I run out and I have nobody, and I have to like grab people I know and I say, will you mentor please? And that's crazy. And so the whole thing probably needs to be more officialized somehow. Yeah, Tony?
Tony Hansen. So I volunteered to be at the mentor table yesterday for an hour, and at least 2 people came up who were mentors or on the mentors list and asked, I haven't been contacted yet. What's going on? And so I guess I'd ask that a little bit more communication be held with the mentors themselves who are being held back in the
right. If they're in the pool,
they haven't been forgotten. And
no, I try to. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that they're because otherwise I run out. And I don't want to have people just. Yeah, but then people go. It's a whole crazy.
I understand you're holding some back, but let them know that.
Let them know that you're being held back. Don't worry. I guess the whole thing is it's all been kind of really loose. And so we should really talk about that, is because I've had other people say too that everybody should just get a mentor. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out that people have said to me, and let's all talk about whether we should do that or not. Yeah, Brian?
Brian Carpenter, 2 points. First one, these people who don't show up when Lee's supposed to be mentoring them, I wonder if he's got a rating in TripAdvisor or something. Scott. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay. And anyway, seriously, I don't think we should use TripAdvisor, but I think some sort of results logging might be useful. Right. So after the IETF, you or whoever is organizing the thing finds out mentor, mentee failed to meet, did meet, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's really, and you know what? We do send out, the Secretariat sends out an evaluation form. They say, did you like it? And of the people who respond, and of course that's probably a self-selected group, of the people who respond, they say they liked it.
Yep.
But I don't know if people who didn't like it or for whom it didn't work, they don't say anything.
It'll be useful to the mentor to know this, actually. I've never seen the results of that.
Yeah. For what?
I've never.
You've never seen the results of
No. I think it's like when you're teaching, you see the student evaluations.
You know what? That's really true.
It's good for the soul to see the student evaluations.
Like mentor feedback.
Yeah.
That's really good.
The other thing, which is a little bit along the same lines, we know who the newcomers are, or at least the Secretariat does, because they give them little tags.
Yeah.
There's no reason why the registration database for the meeting couldn't be used as the place where you put the matches. Yeah, an extra column in the database for who is the mentor.
I'll get to that, because there's a whole thing about tools.
Yeah, I mean, let's not discuss the tools in detail. Let's simply point out it can be done.
It can
should be done.
So I think feedback for mentors is good. Okay, so I'm going to get into it, just 1 second. Let me put the other slide up so you guys can start talking. So, because there's to me, I think these are all wonderful issues. I think there's some fundamental issues that we need to talk about too. But yeah, go ahead, Lucy.
So Lucy Lynch, NSRC, and I've been a mentor several times across several different types of mentees, and both ahead of time and assigned on the spot. It's been, in general, a good experience, partly, I think, because of my own expertise and who I introduce them to here and where they're coming from. My experience has been that a lot of my mentees have turned out to be mostly operational in nature, and that I hook them up with a few people and topics and working group documents here, but they go home and they're more interested in their local NOG or in something else, and I have a follow-on relationship with them by email as they connect with LACNIC or with APNIC or with some other group. I'm still in contact with FANTA and people in Africa and whatever who don't come to another meeting, but who got a lot out of this. And there might be something that you want to do that's a follow-on with mentees who've attended the meetings and then don't come but stay engaged in the technical community.
Yeah.
So actually, I'd like to address this because you mentioned two types of mentees, and actually, I am also a mentor on both programs. And one question is whether those who were mentees of ISOC, to what extent they become engaged in the IETF, and that's kind of an IETF question. But the other one is also how we measure success. Exactly. Is success the fact that we'll get a positive feedback, or is success that actually something that we measure like a little bit more in time, and by the fact that the respective mentees have become either efficient, prolific contributors to the IETF or active in their regions as ISOC associates.
Or as technical participants in their
or as technical participant in their communities. And I believe that the answer is clear to me. So we are not working in the same, to use Brian's example with the teachers' feedback. Is good for teachers to get feedback, but the scope of the university is not for the teachers to get good feedback, but actually for the people they educate to.
Yeah, I have a previous mentee
to become top professionals or whatever.
In Africa now on the operational side. So.
Yeah. No, really, I'm glad we're getting all these notes. Okay, so to me, the fundamental problem is this the right program? So what we have now is what I would call a freshman buddy, and people have told me that's a little too American slangy. So right, okay. So what that means is freshman is your first year at school, and so a lot of times you get somebody who walks around with you to class or school or whatever, help you out that first week of school, whatever, a freshman buddy, and which is what we do here. And having said that, I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a very valuable function. But there's two things. One, you have to be here at meeting to do it. It's not before the meeting. It's really not after the meeting. If it so happens that you have something after the meeting, well, that's just, it happens. You know what I mean? Having said that, having a true mentoring relationship, I'm going to say it's a very, very valuable thing, and probably one of the most valuable things I can think of. I mean, I have some mentors in my life, and there has to be a certain kind of chemistry between you and the other person, and there's a commitment and responsibility on both sides for it to be a true. I see people nodding. And as I say, it's a very important thing. And it's hard enough for us to match on the basis of language and interest. I mean, this is not eHarmony here. I mean, we're not going to, how do you match on intellectual interest, and chemistry? But not, and I looked to see what other people are doing. And I see, if some of the people from ISOC would like to comment, I'd love to hear, what they're doing. But I've looked at like SIGCOM, some of the universities, what they're doing. If they have a long-lasting mentoring relationship, they actually ask you to sign a contract. Because, and presumably they have you sign a contract because otherwise it probably doesn't work. And so I assume that it would, you know what I mean? Because it's not easy. So Neil, you want to, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Niall Harper from ISOC. I manage the ISOC fellow study IETF IETF. So from our perspective, what we've done with the mentoring programs, I think I'll break it down in the pre, the during, and the post. In terms of pre, we very actively look to match our mentees with someone who's in the same, working in the same functional area, whether it be routing, security, or applications. Make sure that we start the relationship. We introduce the mentor and then let them decide how they meet. And then when we're at the actual meeting, we ensure that they have scheduled meetings with their mentor, and throughout the week, we reinforce that those meetings are being effective. So on Wednesday, we'll usually meet with the mentees and say, have you met your mentor? If you haven't met your mentor, then we'll engage the mentor just to ensure that the relationship is working. And then throughout the week, we continuously reinforce, we speak with both the mentors and the mentees just to make sure the relationship is being effective. After the meeting, we have a mentee survey as well as a mentor survey. So we get the directional feedback on how was your mentor, how was your mentee, did he take initiatives, were the meetings successful? And that helps us to gauge how effective that's been.
No, that's great. So how do you get mentors? Can you just pick, or they sign up?
We'll reach out to mentors. We'll reach out and say, we have a fellow who's interested in your working group or interested in your research group. Are you interested?
So you consider basically all your mature constituency as potential
Yes.
mentors.
And thanks to you as well for being a mentor.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that really, it's the pool that really helps. I mean, if we have the whole pool, great, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And we usually have approximately 11 or 12 mentors per meeting. And
So you have 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Okay, because we're probably running close on 30. Yeah. And 30 is little, I think, because we probably have about 100. Alexa, 188. Yeah. So this is pathetic right now. No, I'm telling you, this is pathetic. We need more.
Leslie Daigle, Thinking Cat Enterprises. A lot of good stuff about mechanics and different ways of doing things, but a question that's on my mind is, what do we want to call success, right? And particularly in a meeting week, what's the goal of a successful mentoring outcome?
Very, very good point. Yeah.
I guess my mentor said it all.
Scott Mansfield. One thing that I think is very important to consider as well is that there are most people that are first-time attendees. Well, okay, I don't know this. I need some stats to back this up. But I see a lot of first-time attendees coming from companies that are already companies that come to the IETF.
Right.
So I think it is important for us to, exactly. It's very important for us to create lost the word, but we need to make sure that the companies that are coming, that are bringing multiple people, are mentoring their people as well. Because I've seen this with Juniper does a really good job with this. Ericsson does this from time to time, and Huawei does it as well. I know that there are companies that when they bring people that are new, they have their own internal meetings as well. So let's make sure that we stress that that's an important thing for companies to consider. Give their employees some background before they show up.
No, that's actually relatively easy because because if we have people, then But thank you. Yeah, Tony. Yeah.
Tony Hansen. One of the things that you mentioned is that you try to match up the interests. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is that you try to match up the interests between the mentor and the mentee. And what I've found with my mentees is that it didn't really matter that we were interested in the same thing so much, because they were not, well, some of the things that you want the mentors to do is to be able to introduce them to other people. That may or may not require knowledge of the areas that they're interested in. But the other thing that they seem to mostly want is understanding the IETF as a whole, understanding the process of the IETF, understanding how to get something published as a document, and working its way through the mill into an RFC, eventually to an RFC. And that's very generic knowledge that it doesn't require that matching of interest so much. And so that's
actually, when we are preparing this material, we discuss this a little bit. My personal belief is that the area or kind of the professional interest is part of the matching, because even because for the reasons that if somebody is interested in security, then somebody coming from the security area has probably better chances to have those relations that the security mentee may need to. Having said this, I fully agree that transferring the cultural thing, transferring the IETF credo and goals and reason to be is probably one of the essential things, and one of the things that makes us different in the landscape, and also one of the things that many people who have not been at the IETF actually have sometimes a hard learning curve. And I would just add to this that I found very useful also in some cases the matching of kind of the cultural background of the mentor and the mentee, the fact that they speak the same language or come from the same or similar cultural background sometimes helps things not to get lost in translation. I'm not kind of saying that cultural exchanges are very useful, but maybe not in the initial phase of introduction. Maybe the next step.
One of my mentors is actually from South America, and his #1 language is not English. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, but you're very approachable, Tony, and yeah. And so, and I think that's kind of that's a good thing too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So Terrell Cowieson with the Internet Society. As Niall mentioned, we do a debrief with our fellows at the end of the week. And what we hear consistently is that the 3 areas where the mentors are instrumental, it's navigating the processes, it's forming the relationships, and then the last piece is around what work to focus on. So we encourage what work to focus on. So we encourage our mentees to discuss with their mentors the IETF agenda and what sessions they should go to and where they should focus their energy.
You know, I will say that we have quite a bit of guidance that we give to the mentors. I mean, they should go with them to the newcomers meet and greet, introduce them to everybody, we do tell them that. It's but you know what? It's kind of like once the relationship happens, yeah. Go ahead, Lee.
Lee Howard. Let me ask a question first. How is the diversity of mentors?
What do you mean?
So we're talking about language as being one thing, that having a common language or having a common area.
Yeah. No, I don't. I'm going to tell you, I start running really low. I mean, if I've got, because we've got probably maybe a pool of, I'm going to say maybe 72, and then I send out an email blast before to say, are you coming to Prague? And you've probably gotten it, and then and then I end up with maybe what do you think, Marcy? Like 25, and so then my diversity is like, Hey, a lot of times I'm telling you something. It's like I'm grabbing people that I know are like really nice people. I just do. I know they're really nice, and I just say, well, please, I need somebody.
But it's still a volunteering activity.
It is.
Exactly.
It is.
See, you know what? If the pool, I'm just telling you something. If the pool is, oh, anybody? Well, right? So that's
a point.
It's expanding the pool. I also had another comment, which is my experience. So the point that many people come to IETF already knowing somebody here and therefore don't need a mentor because they're coming with somebody from their company. That's a good point. I kind of cheated and looked at the next slide, and because I've been thinking about very often the reason people come to their first meeting is because they've submitted a draft and they have no idea what to do with that as a draft. So I think document mentoring, draft, we've got document shepherds. How about having author shepherds to help people figure out how do you find consensus? How do you ask the right questions? How do you present? What do you put into your presentation for your first draft presentation?
Okay, guys, now I'm going to throw out a bunch of more things. Just 1 second, Leslie, I'll get to you. I'm going to throw out a bunch of other stuff. But now it's great to have all these ideas of, oh, yeah, we can do this, we can do that. People need to volunteer to say, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, yeah, I will be the mentor. Because, it's like I'm being facetious about I have the whole pool. People need to say, yeah, I'm willing to do this. And I'm going to kind of get on a little bit of a soapbox. I really think that we need diversity. We need diversity. We need to have more people involved of many different everything, because it's really the problems that we have can be solved best by having many different kinds of minds working together on the same problems. Having said that, to contribute at the level that a lot of working groups needs, you need to be at a pretty high level. And so it would, and I think that's why I think this team is so important. You need both education and mentoring to help people if they're not quite there, or you don't know the culture of the IETF can sometimes be, a friend of mine called it, IETF can be a contact sport. To translate that, again, what that means is it's like a rugby or football. And it's true. And some people are comfortable with, it's like, fine, you knock me down, I'm going to knock you down. Some people are comfortable doing that. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something. No, it's okay. Because actually, when the mentoring team started, the edu team was asked if we are willing to take that on as an activity. And now we're back. And we were thinking about it at the time, and we felt, yes, it would kind of fit in the scope. And a lot of the ideas here I agree with that, I think. But we just didn't have the resources. We didn't have the people, the volunteers to actually pull this off. So that's why it started as a separate program. And now we're kind of coming back together again because we feel we're really doing kind of similar work, and maybe it should be this, more integrated, and we will get to that if you ever come to the next slide. But yeah, this is the key point. I hope to get many volunteers at the end of the session to come up here and help us, get this off the ground.
Leslie Daigle, Thinking Hat Enterprises. I remember some IETFs better than others. But I actually do remember my first IETF, even though it was longer ago than I'm going to admit at this moment. And I came with a posse. I came with a bunch of people who had been participating for a while, but it was a different era. And everybody came to the IETF mostly because they were coming to the IETF to help move the whole thing along. I think one of the challenges with looking at companies mentoring their employees is the companies that come often, they are here to get their work done. And that's okay. And that's, got to respect that. But the chief focus is going to be, how can we get you to get our work done? And by the way, all of us are getting in the car and going off sightseeing from Wednesday afternoon through Friday. So, again, back to what is success for mentoring? Is it to get through the week? Is it to get people to come back? Is it to get people to get more involved in the IETF? I think we need to make some choices there.
Alea Atlas. I have 3 ideas. One is, just like NomCon volunteers, we ask people if someone's been to more than, say, 3 years of IETF, on the registration form, ask them if they're willing to be a mentor. And most people aren't paying attention. They won't volunteer if they're not asked. So let's automate the asking because it takes a while. Second is, I agree. I think having one of the strengths of the IETF is finding the cross corporate boundary relationships that help you resolve issues. And so I think that we should assume that competent companies are trying to do the mentoring internally, and what would be better to encourage is actually the cross-company mentoring. And then the third idea, and this is just an idea, is we're treating the mentor-mentoree relationship as a one-off instead of a family of relationships, because if you have someone who's a mentor and their mentors come back, then mentees come back, then you actually have a family of them. And so something that could happen, for instance, just like at the newcomers, we have table, you could have a section for the breakfast where you have, okay, Monday breakfast, meet with your mentor for the first year as a group. So they're not just getting the mentor, but they're getting the experience from the first, second, third people who have been coming. And then another idea there is just like at the newcomers where we have different area tables, you could have an area table where it's organized by mentors' interest, so that even if people are paired with a mentor who is not in the same area or working group interest, it becomes easier for the mentor to bring them over to the table to introduce them to other people who are in the same area, who are in the area that they're interested in, to help, again, build those relationships.
Those are, Aaliyah, you have so many good ideas.
Well, it's always the implementation, right?
Vinayak Hegde, independent consultant. So I'm really thankful to Miriam, Toral, and so I've been an ISAC fellow several times, and I gave a tutorial. So I have two kinds of feedback. One related to the cultural diversity. I remember my first IETF experience. Honestly, it was traumatic. Because I remember going to the. Yeah, it was I was a fellow. It was because I went to a working group meeting, and I have been to lots of other conferences, and IETF is very, very different from any of them. And a lot of people, even after, and I had read that Tao of the IETF and all of the documentation, but I was still not prepared for the kind of adversarial, sometimes relationship, or as you said, put it nicely euphemistically called tact sport, that is there between the people who are at the mic and people who are presenting, and that is jarring for a lot of Asian cultures that I can tell you about. It might sound, and I was kind of inured to that because when I was working at Akhmai then, and my boss was German, who used to give really direct feedback. So I was kind of inured, but even then it was very hard for me to come to terms with that. So I just wanted to emphasize that the cultural aspect is actually important when doing the matching. So that really helps, especially because the IETF is quite different from any other conference.
Yeah, I don't want to go off on this whole thing because I could probably, I'll contain myself. I think this is extremely important because it's like here you have an adversary, and I actually think it's great in some ways.
No, I believe it's great. I believe it's great.
But,
it's a good thing.
But because really, if you can be totally open, that pretty much nobody's hiding stuff behind their backs. They just don't have that kind of personality. It's out in the open, which is a lot easier to deal with a lot of times. Having said that, for some, definitely, I come from Asian culture too. I've been here too long, so I'm American, but
By the way, this was just not my feedback. I talked to, having been to several IETF, I talked to a lot. I was a returning fellow as well. So when I talked to the first-time fellows or even the returning fellows, both from LATAM and from Asia, this was consistently. So I kind of told them that this is what you're going to face.
Absolutely.
So,
and actually, I think, I have to say this here. I think this all sounds a bit weird now. It also applies to women. You know, I think it really helps to have role models. I mean, I like noticed for myself, you know, I have been encouraged by other women, and now maybe being in the role myself, you know, to encourage other women to participate and to feel welcome and comfortable in this like male culture. So it's a similar thing. I think so far, I mean, when I had mentees and they were female, I think it worked out really well. Actually, we got on really well together. So.
No, I think, but on the other side of that, it's a very interesting thing, because on the one hand, you have to fight head on, and on the other hand, you have to build consensus. And so but that's a very interesting line to walk. And I wanted to just wonder if this comes back to Edu now, is if we need some more soft training and how that all fits in.
Yeah, so I just wanted to propose the same thing, that maybe just mentioning this and putting it out there, just letting people know, might just be helpful. It's something that people just need to be aware of, and I'm very sure that people are smart enough to figure that out. So one last point I wanted to make regarding the, is this the right time to talk about the tutorial? Sure. So when I was doing the tutorial and preparing through it, lots of people gave really good feedback. Was maybe should we also look at something like a workshop which is like hands-on based, or is it something that we should do maybe in the NOGs and not so much in the IETF? So this is a conversation I had with Miriam and a bunch of other people as well. But that is something that I want to propose to the group as a whole. Thank you.
We've got some questions coming up. I'm going to stop the mic after Karen for a second, and then try to at least get through my slides.
So the thing I was kind of like, I kind of want to reinforce what Leslie said about, I think you need to understand what problem it is you're trying to solve. What caused me to stand up real quickly was Aaliyah's suggestion that we check off on the registration form that you're willing to be a mentor. And there's a part of me that says we don't need more mentors. We need to figure out what the program is that we want to run, and then we need to successfully execute that. And I think what we're talking about here is, I think, something lighter weight than mentoring, at least for the significant, I think it's a significant portion. There's a whole set of people that want to understand how the IETF works and get a high-level overview of the working groups, and they want somebody to talk to, but they're not necessarily looking for multi-year or multi-IETF relationships. Right. And so I think we need to start with something smaller in scale, figure that out, execute it successfully, and then talk about growing it.
And I totally hear what you're saying, but I'm not saying but I don't agree with you. But I totally hear you. I mean, that is one need, is we need that. I think in order to encourage more people, I think we need to encourage more people to participate. And so let me get to this other thing. And I don't know why I think maybe this isn't even a part of the group, but let me put in, let me throw it out. And then, because I think, okay, oops, I'm going backwards. All right. I think we said all this. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say this again. Maybe this is not the job of the Edu team, but I'm just going to talk about some fundamental problems that I see that we, the IETF, need to solve. One of them is to involve other people in the process. And as I say, I've yacked about this before, and I hope you agree. I'm going to skip past the tools. One of the things I'm going to bring in, and again, I don't know if this belongs here. Somehow I thought it did. I'm telling you something. This is expensive. Is IETF turning into a pay-to-play? Again, another slang expression, meaning you can't participate if you don't have the cash. And this is expensive. I mean, a ticket to Prague from California is like $1,600 plus the hotel plus food. Okay, I try not to eat anything, but so I mean, and then translate that to frankly, why is ISOC having fellows, right? I mean, I know in India, where I come from, I mean, I know what the exchange rate is. I mean, that's just a lot of money for a lot of people, not just in the Western world. In the developing world, I think it's practically impossible to afford that kind of money. And so again, maybe this doesn't even belong in edu, but maybe it does, is I think if we had remote sites, maybe at universities, Cairo, South Africa, whatever, and then they teleconference in, so because and I know everybody wants to be here. I want to be here, but you got to afford it, and then maybe they could remotely come in. Just, I know, what do you guys think? Okay, I guess there's a lot of opinions. Okay.
Scott Mansfield. So what you're telling me is that you actually want to use the tools of the internet to connect people. I'm shocked.
I tell you.
I'm shocked. It's 2015 and this is a new idea. I can't stress how important this type of thing is, in my opinion. The Internet Society, I don't want to sign them up for anything, but the Internet Society is doing an excellent job now in engaging its organizational members using the Connect platform, which is a wiki-style platform. It uses virtual meetings to communicate on topics. We have some face-to-face things, but we also are trying to do a lot with virtual attendance as well. And I think you'll get people that will want to mentor these types of engagements. You could have companies sponsor rooms with video conferencing facilities. It gives ISOC something to go ask for more money from companies to do. It gives people, so there's a lot of positive things. Whether or not this fits in edu, it needs to fit somewhere. So if this is the group that starts it, that's nice.
Since you mentioned India, I just wanted to talk about shortly. There's this website that we have put up called iicb.org, which is IETF Internet Capacity Building Program. So that's funded by the Indian government. It's not my work. I saw Kolkata has taken that up. So this is exactly what we are planning to do. We have talked to people in different locations. We have talked to companies in different locations. We want them to tune to certain IETF activities. The challenge obviously is the timing, because that's a problem.
Yeah.
But we have tried it. It's worked decently well. And we are actually also now kind of replicating the ISOC program and funding it and sending more people from India to the IETF. So we are just replicating what great work ISOC has done. So yeah, I'm very sure there are other countries also that are doing similar work. For example, I know that people from Latin America also doing similar stuff. But this is something really useful, maybe at universities and
corporate,
especially something very easy which people can connect to are the plenaries, which are relevant to a lot of people. And there's some really, really good rock stars that, honestly, to use the slang again, who come, like for example, Bruce Nair. A lot of people would love to listen to him. So if we just have those, that awareness level just goes up several notches.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, of course, important, the remote participation part. I just want to underline that it's not just sort of the way that people participate or due to costs or location. It's actually a fundamental change how people operate. And it's not that companies, for instance, don't necessarily have money to send people here, but it's that their time is split in smaller pieces. They need to get something done, and part of that something is having something happen at the IETF, helping those people be able to do that, and making it possible without necessarily being like a full-time standardization person doing other things as well, not necessarily being in all meetings or even any meetings, and not necessarily being like a career IETFer. Do the thing that you needed to do and then move on to do other stuff. So we need to match that change in the environment. That means both in terms of how we let people participate in the meeting stuff, which isn't really the topic of this meeting, but also in how we mentor and how we teach people things about the IETF. So tailoring for that case as well, not saying that we should shut down what we have now on Sundays as an example, but we need to keep in mind that there's another type of a use case that is quite common today.
Asi Daigle, Thinking Cat Enterprises. 2 bits of context. One, I believe remote participation is very important for the IETF's future. And 2, I have been known to self-fund my trips to the IETF, including this one. So with that, I think that looking at remote participation as a way to participate in an IETF meeting without having to travel is too narrow, far too narrow. I think it's just always going to come up as being just sort of I got the cheap seats at the IETF. I think the important way to look at it is to say what is IETF operations, which is part of the EDU charter. What do you get out of the IETF? It's not just a meeting. There is a community here, whether or not we recognize it officially.
Yes.
And how can we engage that community more fully, whether it's physically in person 3 times a year or at distance with distance tools at the same time or at different times. So I really don't think the short form of my comment is don't think of remote participation as the cheap seats for coming to an IETF meeting. This is community. I came to this meeting not because there was an IANA plan working group that isn't going to meet on Thursday, but because of everything else that happens here. So how can we translate those relationships, that culture, the work getting done beyond the level of recording working group sessions into something that's achievable remotely?
No, I completely agree. I mean, I don't think that there's any substitute really for coming here. Having said that, what you're really saying, I think, is can we create remote communities? And so it's not just necessarily a one-time shot of remote participation, but clusters. Is it? Am I reading you?
I think that maybe a different way to look at it is to say, think of the future of the IETF as being remote participation and entirely, and work back from there.
Oh boy, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But go ahead, Lee.
Lee Howard. I agree with that actually. I didn't think I would until I spent 10 seconds on it, and then I went such much. We've always said as IETF that our primary venue of work is the mailing lists, and you don't have to be anywhere in particular to be on the mailing list. We get together with meetings for a variety of other reasons. The hallway track, the community stuff that happens in the hallway is very important, and that's really hard to duplicate on mailing lists or even chat rooms. It's better when you have a remote hub like you were talking about before. There have been at least 2 examples of that I know of. ISOC has done facilitated a couple of things. I think Scott was a little too modest, where there have been hubs of meetings, 20, 50 people get in a room and participate in a meeting remotely, and they also get some value of the remote participation because they're there and they can talk during their coffee break.
Right.
LACNIC, I think it's LACNIC has been facilitating the LAC IETF mailing list, and that's been fantastic to watch. It was really great. My working group at the last meeting, I happened to be on Jabber because I try to make sure that I hold the meeting long enough, to hold the comments long enough to make sure anybody on Jabber gets up there. And there was a LAC IETF group participants in Jabber on MeetEcho, and I could see that there were people there who were actually paying attention. So, and I don't know what the conversations were offline because A, I wasn't there, and B, I don't speak Spanish. But it would be I could even imagine, I suggested this to you at the newcomers, I could even imagine a way to avoid making the remote hubs being the cheap seats is putting working group chairs in those remote hubs.
Yeah. No. Well, another thing that's kind of interesting is just, those of you who work in corporations, when we have meetings, there's a big old video screen. With my customers, so we're seeing the other person. This is like, somebody's got a big screen. Come on, what is this? Because this feels really kind of 1960s.
With that,
what's that?
I just have just a quick comment that and the only thing that I'm thinking after all this discussion that we've had is, please don't think that we're doing this in a vacuum. There are other organizations in the world that are solving this exact same problem. Right. Let's liaise with them and make sure that we gain all of the experience they've had running remote participation meetings, running voting over that, running sessions where they can actually have real conversations. There's a lot of work that's going on in this area, so let's please look at that as well.
Yeah, no, that's really, really important. Yeah. And especially it's like if you have ideas on who's doing it well. Yeah.
Yeah, may I suggest that, in the interest of time, maybe we focus more on the education part and the mentoring, and not so much.
To move it along.
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah.
So, in antithesis to that note, I'm getting there. Justin Richer. I just wanted to make a note that one of the things with remote participation, hubs or not, the time zone shift can be very, very difficult for people to overcome. I know people who wanted to attend the first sessions this morning, but it was at 2 a.m. their time on Monday morning, which is really hard to make a meeting at that time.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So that's one thing that I don't think we will ever overcome. So remote will always be a kind of second-class citizen, but we can at least elevate that.
Well, you know what? I wonder. You know what? I don't know how to do this. Maybe we can get together and have a remote participation BOF. Yeah.
Everybody's
Yeah. Well, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, Dan Romashkano, just an observation as a participant about remote participation, but the technology is here and we have it, and it happens to be developed in the IETF or collaboration between the IETF and W3C. It's called RTC Web. It works.
So we'll take that offline. Okay, let's get back on topic. Okay, so so the idea, I guess, I don't know if we should hum or, so the idea is we're thinking of merging the edu and the mentoring team, because I think there's a lot of interests, that we have in common. And then we can really, the other thing I will tell you, like Miriam said, you know what, we need some more people, because this is, if there's a lot of ideas, a lot of other things to do, we actually have day jobs. Would love people to stay after.
Yeah, maybe we can do a few questions, like a few hums, shall we keep this on the tutorials? Shall we do videos? Shall we webinars? Shall we do all this? And then who's going to willing to do all this, in the end? So I'm hoping to see many hands in the end. So
Yeah. No, let's do that. I think we're going to have a few questions.
I think this is looking concerned.
Uh-oh.
Well, no. I'm not concerned, but I think there's a mixture of different activities. You're saying webinar, and thinking about it as being, there can be a mixture of, here, this is pre-cooked stuff that everyone watch and then come together to talk about, or other mixtures. The way that you were describing, framing the questions, seemed to presuppose all the details of the solutions to be fairly rigid. I'm sure you didn't intend that, but that was my concern, Locke.
No, certainly not. No, but this is all very open, and I'm hoping to have lots of people with great ideas to work all this out in the end. So I don't have the answers to many of these open questions.
Yeah.
So do you want to move on?
Sure. Okay, so I guess one thing that we probably is fairly, is a very small question. Well, not small, but very clear question that we can probably hum on is, how many should we merge the edu and mentoring teams? I guess hum if you would say yes. Okay, who would say keep them separate? Oh, okay. How about not? Okay. Yeah. So what do we need?
So Terrell Cowieson, Internet Society. What I'm struggling with a bit is what I think was raised several times was, what problem are we trying to solve? And if I look at the original charter around operational effectiveness, I would go to that as a question, right? How are we increasing operational effectiveness? And then what are the metrics to measure that 12 to 18 months out? And then what are the tools in the toolbox to get there? So
yes, yes, you're right. And that's why I thought, we have a few more questions than maybe we got into a bit more, too much into the mentoring issues. Yeah. Because one question for the edu team has, for instance, the Sunday tutorials. Are they an effective way to make the work at the IETF efficient? Are they at least a piece of the puzzle? Shall we keep them? What do people think? Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, there they are. Scott, do you want to say something?
Scott Bradner, do we have any facts?
Sorry?
Do we have any facts? How many people came to the meetings? How many people came to the tutorials? How many people complained they were on Sunday and didn't get here on time? Do we have any facts?
Yes, we do.
Can
You
we-
know best how many people come to the newcomers tutorial.
Quite a few, but I don't know how many. I know there's a lot in the room, but we're right now we're doing fact-free analysis, and it wouldn't hurt to actually talk about some
There are
facts.
always a fair number of people in the tutorial in the sessions, like 40 people each, I would think. And I think the people who come to the meetings, at least that's what we understand from the feedback forms we get, they find them valuable. But we also hear many complaints that they are on Sunday afternoon, people aren't here yet, or it's in parallel with other sessions they have to go to. And so yeah, it's not an available time slot for everybody.
Yeah, this is Brian. The world isn't perfect. Is this microphone actually on?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
okay, because it doesn't sound like it. The fact is we do get feedback in the feedback forms after each IETF. It's almost always very positive about the tutorials. The people who attend them like them. We don't get feedback from the people who don't attend them for obvious reasons. So the feedback about Sunday afternoon is a problem is anecdotal, because it's not a problem if you arrive on Saturday, right? Sure. So if people want to have the weekend with their family, and fly in at midnight on Sunday, then they don't come to the tutorials. And it's very hard to get facts about that. If we got feedback from the tutorials that was more mixed than we do, I would be worried, but actually we get quite positive feedback. So I think the real problem is not whether the Sunday tutorials are any good or not. It's whether, and I don't factually know how to answer this, it's whether we are in fact missing a lot of people who would benefit from them if they were available in an online style so that people could watch them in their own time from home. Now, the videos are there, but it's my submission that very few people will actually voluntarily sit watching a video for an hour and 20 minutes of a talking head droning on about some slides. I think that's a really lousy format for remote participation. So again, we don't really have facts on that, but it seems to me self-evident that the people who are not here on Sunday afternoon are not going to sit and watch 1.5 hours of boring video. So if we want to reach those people, we have to do something else.
Right. So just as an observation, a couple of issues. One of them is that people who are coming on Saturday, or people who are coming on Sunday, some people may be coming on Sunday, or some people may be even coming on Monday morning for different reasons. For example, they do not have financing for coming on Saturday. So it's not only about spending the weekend with the families, but there are also some other kinds of constraints that we need to take into account in real world. And second, I think that again, right. So we get feedback from people who already took the pain and participated, and usually we have the best or amongst the best of the contributors who are giving those tutorials. So the feedback is good, and we expect it to be good. But probably looking at some other more modular ways of passing the information, and passing the information especially in advance, because I think that for people who are coming to the IETF meeting, even if they came on Saturday, having only on Sunday hearing for the first time some of the information about how the IETF is organized, or what is an internet draft and how it is to be submitted, I believe it's a little bit too late. That kind of information needs to be passed earlier.
No, Henrik was next.
Oh, sorry.
Henrik Leukowitz. So Scott's point about data-free analysis is a good one. Of course, most or many of us have a little bit of data if we, at the very beginning, attended the newcomers tutorial, and after that have attended others. I think for me, I went to Steve Koya's tutorial when I was a newcomer, and it helped me a lot. This was very, very valuable. And for each of us, I think that the number of tutorials being given on Sunday now is an indication of the success of those we started with, which I think was the tutorial that Steve gave. So if there are conflicts with other stuff, it's because other stuff have come in later as a result of the success of the tutorials. So, I wouldn't be worried about these not being a good format. We could think about making them more easily available online while we're doing them. Maybe that would help. I'm not so sure. I think the current format is really good, and we don't have to tweak things that are really good.
Randy Bush, IJ. I'm somewhat new here, and this is the most arcane society that I've ever seen. The problem is it is very difficult for people to come in and be effective. And I don't care if 2,000 people show up for Scott's tutorial, the body count is not the goal. The goal is the IETF producing high quality product, and the part that this little bit of the subculture is supposed to contribute is to see that those people who are not currently part of the culture and have something to contribute, and there are lots of people out there with the world with unique and good things to contribute, are able to do so more effectively. I think Leah and Toril, etc., and Leslie, what's the goal? The goal is having people participate effectively. I don't care if there are 2,000 people in Scott's tutorial. And not to knock Scott's tutorial, but you talk about you want to measure something. Talk to people who finished their first week here. What helped you? What hindered you? What are you still totally confused about? I've been here a couple years, and there are things I'm still totally confused about. I get more confused as time goes by, I think.
Randy, that's totally true. It's a very tricky
Grab that
microphone.
Grab that microphone. Grab that microphone.
Yeah, maybe we can take offline, like, what are the metrics one might actually use? You know what I mean? I totally get what you're saying, but it's like, but what numbers? The
kind of things that Harold and Yari have occasionally, and other people have done. How many people? What's the length of time of an attendee distributed over internet drafts? Somebody want to state that more clearly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Arco?
Yari Arco. So, we maybe the question of the exact metrics is to be deferred on the list or something. I think the question from Leslie and others on the goal and the target, that's exactly spot on. That's the thing that I think we should be discussing here. I don't think we necessarily need a huge change, and in some sense, the organizational stuff that we just talked about, that's a good thing, but it's still a side issue. That the key question is what exactly are we producing for the community, and in what format and so forth. I think we are drawing enough, like this 188 people, new people in this meeting is one sign that there's enough newcomers in the meeting that we should organize something for them during the Sunday. But at the same time, I have this feeling that much of our sort of course material is, targeted for the in-person, sit down for 2 hours kind of thing, and not for, consumption over the net. I think changing that default a little bit would be useful. So if we had the main tutorial on Sunday, but try to do most of the other things in other formats that are more suitable for even for people who don't come to the meeting, and are consumable by I could look into somebody's working group's interesting things, if it was available on over the net, because I don't have, and many other people here in this room don't have time on Sundays to be in any particular place. And the same thing is true of lots of people. So the strawman proposal that I would have is that we keep the basic Sunday setup, but trim it and put most of the other things that we are producing on video and other similar formats. And I don't necessarily mean the video where we take a picture of someone talking in front of a class. You can do that if your main goal is to do this over the internet. You will do a very different style. So that would be my proposal.
Thanks, Yari. And yes, that's actually how we described it in the draft. And I don't know if anybody actually read that, but to answer or to comment on Randy's point, and so it sounds like the Sunday tutorials are useful for those who are here, but maybe we can make the information a bit more easily accessible for others so that they can also be more effective in the IETF when they get here. So that's, and I agree with what Yari just said, maybe doing some more videos or webinars or whatever before that people can look at before they actually come here. How do I participate remotely? How do I get an internet draft in the whole system? How do I find a working group that is interesting for me? How do I participate and subscribe and jabber and all that? So this could all be like small snippets that people could look at before. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour long video that I have to follow before buying my ticket. But these were the ideas we had when we were writing that draft, and that's the stuff we wanted to get some feedback on. So the strawman proposal from Yari here is spot on.
Mario Georgescu, I'm talking from the perspective of a data point. So it's still pretty fresh in my memory, my first IETF, IETF92. Before coming to the IETF, I watched the video. It was very helpful to me. I was, I don't know, talking about metrics. I think after the video, you can have some sort of survey saying like how helpful was this for you, or whatever. Like maybe after the IETF as well, that can be a possibility. And also, I want to say that I think measurement is important because without measuring it, you cannot really improve it. So I think, we should get data, I guess.
You're right.
Somehow. Like,
yeah, thanks.
Through surveys also.
And you're right. And we have these ideas. It comes back to resources again. We wanted to hand out surveys after every tutorial in the room that people can fill in, and even like have maybe a survey online, and people, have you watched the video? How useful is it? Now, we don't have the resources to do this. Every IETF, I'm like, oh shoot, we still didn't do the surveys, So because we only have this handful of people working on this. But yeah, it's a great suggestion. I'm glad you make that.
Hopefully more volunteers.
Yes, more. People seem to really excited about this, so I'm glad. I don't know who was first. Maybe Harold?
Harold Alderström. I just like to quote some stuff I wrote some years back. The goal of the IETF is to make the internet work better. The mission of the IETF is to produce documents. I'm skipping some words here. So it was kind of interesting to see the discussion morph back into what's the point of running the internet, running the IETF. And if we were looking for a metric, I would say, look at the authors of the RFCs published in any recent period. Look at how many of those authors were new to the IETF 2 years ago. We all know that getting anything significant done in the IETF takes at least 2 years. So if we have authors like that, it's a sign of success. And we might want to approach those people and ask, what helped you?
What helped you?
Yeah.
No, I think that's a wonderful thing. Because the diversity. Because I mean, if a metric can be RFCs, or drafts. Let's not, because it's going to take a while to get it published.
There's a lot of crap being published as IDs. That's why I suggested RFCs.
Yeah. No, I know, but it's 2 years. I don't know, but in any case, some length of time for for things produced, and diversity of people producing them. But can we take credit for all that? You know, I mean, it's like, I mean, really?
It's a noisy signal.
It's, yeah.
Aaliyah Atlas. So several things. First, on goals. There are two goals that are happening here. One is people are coming in saying, here, I'm interested in participating in this. I want to get this thing through. And so one of the goals is helping them learn how to effectively negotiate and do a buy-in process with find the relevant people, get consensus, do a buy-in. That's their goal. As the IETF, we have another goal as well, partly getting new participants, partly having them learn and start to care about making the internet work better, what our mission is. And it's not just the first one, it's the second. And so you talk about how to get the culture, how to be able to handle forthright discussions. Yes, but a large piece of it, one of the parts that we're trying to do is to absorb them into understanding the broader picture, trying to make things do well. I think we need to remember both of those pieces, how to be effective as well as how to have them understand why we're doing this, why they should care about doing something other than dive bombing in for one afternoon for their working group, right? Those are the kinds of things we need to help make clear. So that's one point. Second point, I'm sorry, I haven't been to any of the tutorials, even my first IETF, but one thing that I did get to play some really fun board games with people who I knew from other experiences, but that was a long time ago. Anyway, one of the things that I think could be really useful at the tutorial for like newcomers is small group exercises. So one of the examples that I talk about, if someone comes in, I say, right, so if you have a draft, figure out your 5-minute pitch about the draft. When you go up to someone in the hallway, say hi and ask them what they're working on. And once they've told you all about what they're working on, they're going to stand there for 5 minutes so you can tell them what you're working on. And one of the things is it's a useful possibility to do small group. Here, let's, gather up 8 people, 10 people, do it to each other, report back, get that first experience, and you're also building connections. Being a newcomer's tutorial shouldn't be a static presenter to the audience being told. It should be an interactive experience where they're already starting to build the connections and feel that sense of community. So that's one part of the idea. Second, we can do stuff on Friday after. How'd it go? You presented. Did it go well? What did you expect? Do you have any things let's talk about what you could have done better, etc. Again, small world, smaller group, building it together. I mean, I have the same. So one of the things that I've been doing for the last year, which isn't pertaining to newcomers, but to working group chairs, is in routing. We have between each IETF 2 to 3 working group chair sessions where we do training on different topics. I mentioned this. And part of what's valuable is, of course, the material that's being delivered. But most of the value, I think, comes from the conversations that people are having. If you're not letting them talk and bring it back to their own experience and their own goals, then they're not getting the value and they're not getting other people's perspectives. So if we're doing things for the web, yeah, it needs to be more of a here you go presentation. But if it's in person, we should be taking advantage of the relationships and the interactions and the tying it to their own parts that they can do.
Yeah, Jakob Stein. Everything I've heard pretty much, except for perhaps this part of the last comment, was about newcomers.
Is the Edu team only about the mechanics of how a newcomer knows what an RFC is and what he's supposed to do with it? Yesterday, I had the experience of giving a tutorial on a subject which is not presently being handled by the IETF. Had a very large audience, many of them who come to the IETF for a long time and learned about a subject which is important in the world today, but they didn't know about. I remember I never was at a newcomers presentation, but I remember going to one about gnats a few years ago, when that's not something that I do in my daily life, and I learned a lot about it. And I think that the Edu team can look into taking people who have been coming for 20 years to the IETF, but don't know everything about our technologies. There's probably a few people like that. And want to learn, and then maybe get involved in a working group or starting up a working group on something new.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so let me just shortly address this, because this also came up in our preparation discussions, and maybe to some extent is reflected also in the internet draft, which everybody has read, but few have commented upon. It's this our charter. I put it back again on the screen. So the focus is improving the effectiveness of the IETF operations, and I believe that we still judge, even when we pick, let's say, like more technical subjects, we still judge the merits and prioritize items according to this specific criteria. So it's about improving the IETF, whose role and charter and goals has been reassessed again by Harald with a beautiful word he wrote some time back. But that's the way and the perspective. Now, this means, first of all, kind of an internal IETF specific focus on IETF operations or on new people joining the IETF operations. Maybe this has to be open as well. Maybe the whole goal, or maybe there needs to be some adjustment because it's 2015 and no longer like the late 90s when this was written. I don't know.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Chege from Internet Society. I'd just like to share a short story about what we did in Africa regarding. Okay, sorry. My name is Kevin Chege. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So Kevin Chege, Internet Society. So I just want to share a short story on an event we did on the IETF and something that came out of it. So in 2013, we organized a 1-hour IETF session at an AFNOG meeting. Just to talk about the IETF, what the IETF is about, because IETF awareness is very low in Africa. Out of that meeting, we had 1 or 2 experts from, who work at the IETF and have done a couple of working groups. And out of that meeting, one of the participants was a lady who worked in a university in Kenya. And out of that, she was very interested in the work the IETF is doing. And she went on to talk to our university, and they're interested now in doing a master's in research on internet research in the IETF. So actually, we're actually now trying to help them locate professors who can come and sit in Kenya and talk about that. So out of that small meeting, awareness was created about the IETF, and now the universities are really interested in learning about the IETF if there are people who can go and help them about it. So that's just one thing I wanted to share. Second thing about mentorship, is it possible to localize some of the mentorship in the regions? By that I mean, if we know, or like if you guys know that, for example, there's someone from Africa coming here, we know a few people from Africa who can talk about the IETF, they've participated. So can they be put in touch, over, can be a webinar or over Skype, just, introducing the IETF before any Sunday meeting comes up here, so that, we don't know the people here.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because that idea was just brought up too. They were talking about a local China rep, but I totally think that's a great idea. Local representative. So you get ready way ahead of time, and we'll talk to you about exactly your presentation. Sorry. Sounds like a great webinar. That thing. That is like, it's to different areas. but again, so now I'm going to change my metrics a little bit. I mean, I'm not an IPPM for nothing. So we need not only RFCs created, but other relevant things. And we'll benchmark starting this year.
Hi, Jairus Pryor, Internet Society. I'm a newcomer. I went to the newcomers thing. And I just want to say if there had been kind of group exercises, I absolutely would not have gone. Like, no way. Not only because not just because I don't like them, but also I won't actually be able to build a community with the IETF because everyone else at that group is new. So none of them are going to have the deep roots that I would need, right? So the things that have been helpful for me are people being able to point me at the groups that are relevant to my skills and that I can contribute to. And that's a lot more useful for me than knowing the other newcomers.
Oops. Did you want to, Randy, did you want to comment on that, or do you have a new point? You'll wait. Okay, Vinayak.
Okay, so I had a comment about, so we have the IETF hackathon, which is excellent. But the IETF hackathon is focused on taking a concept and writing code around it. What I felt was if you could have an amalgam of two things, use the hackathon format, but use some part of the tutorial. For example, I can talk about my tutorial and maybe Yako can talk about his. Would be the first part would be like you talk about the concepts and all of the different things, and then maybe look at some practical tools, which you can take the knowledge that you have learned and then actually build a skill, do something really practical with that. That gives a lot more, I would say, advantage or benefit rather than like me yakking away for like two hours. If I could tell them, okay, you have this problem, you want to find out the nearest DNA server, I can set up a RIPE Atlas measurement for you, right? Or if you have this problem, like you are seeing connectivity breaks, this is what you can use. These are the tools that you can use. Let us set up that, maybe spend some time on that, put him in the right direction, and actually go and implement that. Now that is something that is really powerful. And I'm saying this from my own experience as a practitioner. When I came to the IETF, I did not have a lot of operational experience, but what I learned a lot in the IETF is when you actually deploy a technology, how to operate it. And a lot of people are actually lacking that. In the practitioner community, I'm saying this from practical experience. I'm very sure that there are people in academia who also have lack of understanding. Like if you go to the IRTF and a lot of other participants who are actually submitting IDs related and coming from academia, a lot of their proposals are shot down because the people who are from the operational community, and they say, okay, this cannot work because XYZ. And I've seen in regular repeated meetings the same thing being repeated. So that is something that we have to look at as a community, how to fix that. So I don't have answers for that. Something like a workathon, like a workshop plus a hackathon would be one format, could be useful for certain kinds of trainings. Maybe the tutorial is not the only way. Tutorial is one way. It's great for giving concept, but when I can take that knowledge and actually implement something, that's a lot more beneficial, because I can go back to my job and actually do something related with that. And it also makes me find out like what are the most common mistakes that people do when they kind of set up a measurement or something related to that. So maybe we have to be a little flexible about the formats. I don't have answers. Maybe extend the hackathon format to also include these ideas. That is one way of doing it. Or maybe have exclusive workshop. That's another way of doing it.
No, that's just incredible. I mean, my engineers, my guys, and me, of course, too. We have what a concept, a lab. It's like we actually do this stuff hands-on. If you don't do it hands-on, you don't get it. What about an IETF Edu lab? I mean, it's totally not hard to do, And I mean, okay. There's a lot of issues about protection and security, but you know what? I mean, it's like, why not, right? I mean, if we want hands-on experience, but let's just talk. There's lots of ideas. Again, there's lots of ideas, but we need people to help implement too.
One more point.
Just wanted to add one more point. If there is, I don't know how to achieve this, But for every tutorial, there is always some part of introduction that we can probably skip and move the conversation to a higher level. So probably if we can have prerequisites, and the hard problem is how do you make people actually read through those prerequisites. So one option that I've seen work in other conferences is make them paid, but that can be a controversial idea here. But if we have prerequisites for certain tutorials, that might actually save a lot of time and move the conversation a little higher than rather than spending like maybe just half an hour just trying to talk about the basics and set up the context before you actually get to the meat of the idea.
Okay, Scott.
Thank you, Scott Mansfield. Go back to the charter. I hate to bring us back to this, but I just wanted to point out something that's bothering me about the charter, and it is about operations and about helping people with training sessions and educational material that's about how the IETF works. And there's a lot of good ideas here about especially the person that talked about, well, there was a session, it was Yakov, I think, was talking about a session about some technology that's not currently in the IETF. That's not covered by this charter. And so if that is an important thing, that it is how.
I think Brian wants to answer that.
Then maybe I'm incorrect, because I think it is extraordinarily important that we have that type of material available. And when I read the charter, I don't read it that way. So maybe I'll just sit down.
Frankly, we had a similar discussion on the Edu team a few years ago.
Because if it wasn't, what I was going to
suggest
suggest is that if it's not there, we should make sure that it is there and make that a real thing that we do.
Okay.
Oh, this is Brian. It's a question. Oh, sorry.
No, I thought Brian wanted to respond to that as from the Edu team, so I thought I'll let him talk. And
yeah,
sorry, Randy.
I'm sorry.
That was my fault. No, come back. He's not going to play anymore.
Well, that queue is invisible from here.
Yeah,
I know, but I was asked to respond to the specific point, which is we in the Edu team, we've always interpreted improving the effectiveness of IETF operations as including the ability of participants to pick up new technologies and cross technical boundaries within the IETF, specifically things like the tutorial on the area overview tutorials we introduced recently is specifically aimed at people who don't work in those areas, right? Yeah. Now it is a matter of interpretation. If we should make it clearer in the charter, then we could, but that's always been the interpretation. Now I need to look for Randy.
Yes, you have to go get Randy, please. Yes. In the meantime.
Hi, I'm Edwin Cordeiro. I'm an ASOC Fellowship and also a PhD student at TU Munich. And this is my second IETF. The first one was in Berlin 1 year ago. And so just as a new second time, not as newcomer, but my experience. First time I came here was for to know how to proceed with a draft that I had made for software group. And the newcomer session taught me about the IETF culture, but I didn't got exactly how could I proceed, who could help me with that. So I got a lot of information that was useful, but there was no practical way to teach me how to proceed with that. One suggestion that I see, for example, I think it's Aria, she said some kind of interactive, yes, and I agree that maybe just talking with other newcomers will not be enough, but if we're able to make some small session with a couple of shares trying to show what is the feeling that we are going to get in the rest of the IETF, that could be helpful. I know it's almost a play, a theater, but if you see it one time, maybe you will not be shocked. For example, the Asian cultures that when you go straight ahead against other person, that's very hard for. I'm Brazilian, so this is not common there as well. And here, the first time I saw that, I thought people were going to fight in the room. And then I understood that it was okay. And and making my PhD in Munich, I understand that with other cultures like the Germans, they are also like that. So that's not a problem, but for the first come, it was very hard. And so this kind of experience, I think that would be beneficial for the experience. And the other one is on the end of the week, we go away to try to keep the stuff, but we don't have anyone that we could get in touch, follow up. My first mentor was not like that. So there wasn't follow up. So maybe not only the newcomers on Sunday, but something on Friday to try to close up and keep the discussion alive between the new people, I think would be beneficial as well.
Thank you. That was helpful. I think we need to close the mics fairly soon, but yeah, the ones that are still there obviously can talk.
Lucy Lynch, NSRC, and after listening to all the discussion this afternoon, I feel really strongly that you should not merge the EDU and the mentorship teams at this time. I don't think either group is clear enough on their objectives, and I think combining them is confusing the issue even more. And I really think you need to separate out the enculturation, introduction piece and the EDU mission and the potential for that, pre, post, remote, whatever, and get clearer on that before you think at all about joining these two functions, because it's really chaotic.
So Lucy, just to ask a clarification question to what you just said. Do you believe, and I will not be tempted into taking a ham, so I'm asking you because you raised the issue. I'm sure the discussions will follow now, and the EDU public list will be more active than it used to be in the last period of time. Do you believe it's worth spending time in clarifying and maybe putting some more exact words about the scope of each one of the two teams?
Separately.
Separately.
Yes, but this conversation was actually, I think, disabling.
Okay, so because actually we do not have right now, I believe that we do not have a mentor public team. So mentor public list even.
No, I don't even think we have a charter.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we just have, it's very unofficial.
So I would suggest that that's probably a problem to solve with both the IETF chair in the general area and with ISOC, who also has a mentorship program. And I would suggest you solve that problem there, and that EDU solves a separate problem. And then we have this conversation again.
Thank you. Yakov. Okay.
Yeah, Yakov Stein.
We are now very, very cautious.
Yeah, but as Brian said, we don't see who's over there. Yeah. Actually, before I'm responding to Dan's remark, before coming up to the mic, I actually brought up this charter and looked at it before saying what I said. And actually, the way I read this, it completely allows, not only allows, even encourages bringing in new technologies. The only problematic word is the last word. Prepare them to be more effective in their roles. If you read it as number one, training sessions and education that clarify their roles and responsibilities. And the second thing is number two, prepare them to be more effective. That's fine. In their roles, if a role means either a leader or a participant, that's also fine. If that's what roles means in this context, as a participant, I'll be more effective if I know these new technologies and bring them into the. So I don't even think that what Brian says, that it's up to interpretation, unless that word roles meant something else. In which case we don't have to change the charter. It's fine. That's just a technicality, I guess.
Lee Howard, kind of a new topic. Is there any training program for ADs? They're leaders. So, no. Normally, So by the way,
There is a tutorial called leadership training that we've been offering from time to time, and that probably needs a little refreshing. But it is in our scope, but maybe we didn't do very well.
Normally, whenever I make a suggestion or ask a question like that, I'm volunteering. I'm assuming that I'm volunteering. I don't feel qualified at all. But this is Barry Lieba, who is currently on the ISG. And I've heard from a lot of people who, when I asked if they would stand for AD positions, responded something like, I don't know how to do that. I'm afraid of stepping into that with no training. So that would be a good thing.
Is that fair, Peter?
I felt okay without it, but I was scribing for the ISG first, so I sort of had some training in that regard. I'm not the right one to ask.
We do have materials in the
Yeah.
One of the things I seem to be hearing is lots of different kinds of more training. I mean, not just for newcomers and then working group chairs, but ADs and then, and participants. I mean, in a lot of different ways. Is at least that kind of consensus? Am I hearing that right? So expanding the scope of the kinds of training.
Well, I don't think we need to expand the scope. I don't think I heard that. What I heard is that the charter allows the edu team to do what we're already doing now, like partially the procedural trainings, but also the technical trainings to make people work more effectively in the IETF. To the area overviews, I think they were quite successful. The only question that I still don't, the only thing that I still don't have an answer on is, should we do more than that? Should we try to look for other formats, like the videos or webinars, or do more pre-IETF meeting work? Yes, yeah, I hear people nod. Okay, I heard we should merge the edu team with the mentoring team. I didn't hear any disagreement after Lucy said that, and I think in my head this is also an answer that I think I have. We have to talk about that later. What other questions did we need to have answered?
Yeah, to the new format. So we do have in the IETF a pass, which is called the experimental pass. So I guess that doing some experiments and getting the feedback and see how they are received and how they succeed with some of the ideas, and I guess that we filled in 3 or 4 big sheets with new ideas. I believe that trying to sort this out in our common sessions and experimenting with some of them is probably the right path to take.
And maybe you can go to the last slide because it has actually the email. This one is good too, but yes, because the last question obviously I have, are there any volunteers who want to come up and help us with this from now on? Because we really need more people, and also even if we wanted to continue to do what we do now, I think we need more resources. I would love to have a dedicated people for every IETF, for every tutorial. They can work with the speaker, make sure the slides come in on time, do the reviews, make sure they're there when the tutorial starts. These kind of little things. And with the team that we have right now, it's very difficult to do all this. But I meant also the slide with the contact information, because I think we need to maybe discuss this a bit more on the list further on. No, later. Last slide.
Maybe what people can do is to stay. I think it's getting. When is the end of this?
5 minutes.
5 minutes is maybe people can stay
there
after and at least give contact information. So, because I think we need to have. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in some smaller groups where we can actually work and say, okay, what are the issues for mentoring? What are the issues for edu? And what are some possible solutions? How do we measure all this? And then if there's a remote participation BOF, who wants to start working on that? So there's probably 3 different things. And so I guess I'm going to say stay after if you're interested in any of those.
And one more thing. So Yari was so kind to send us a mail like a few hours back and asking us if we need anything. And I answered him kind of politely that we are all set. Maybe this is an issue to mention also in the technical plenary, and maybe even put these slides that we have now with the contact information for the overall plenary, because I'm still thinking about those numbers that you gave. So even in the mentors program, which is somehow has like 70 participants, out of the 70 participants, only less than 40 actually could make it to the current IETF meeting, and the number of new attendees is what, 180 at this IETF meeting. So even if half of them would have answered positively, actually would have been overwhelmed with a 2-to-1 ratio of success, which would have been a success actually, but it would have been actually an overload for many busy people. So having more people involved, so actually I'm kind of ashamed to say, but there were more attendees in the both 2 days than participants in the mentors program. So that's not really good numbers.
Yeah, just one final comment I wanted to make. If I hear people that that they're in favor of doing more, like trying other formats like videos and webinars and so forth, and obviously, we need people to help us do that. But I wonder if you also need like more official help, like from the Secretariat or from ISOC or from organizations who have the resources and the skills to actually do this, rather than us kind of volunteers trying to. You didn't want me to do a video, professionally. It's probably not going to be very good. So I just want to throw this up here because, we'll basically need help in various resources angles here. I don't know if Yara, you want to make any final comments, or are we happy with the outcomes?
Okay, so a lot of useful discussion. Tried to summarize it, but I found it actually quite difficult. Too many specific suggestions, and very good suggestions, by the way, but still, so kind of just had my own takeaways from this meeting, and I guess the main thing for me is that both the mentoring and education teams still need to find their goal. This is what we are improving. This is our ideal future for the education team, as an example. I have a view about that, and some of that was, I guess, communicated earlier, but actually for both for the mentoring and the education part, I think we should actually do 3 things. One, we should be able to do a little bit more about our technologies, not just about the IETF process, but it's about the cool things that we also do. We should scale better, which means that we don't find, just a few volunteers that do everything, but we actually push it onto, say, working group chairs to talk about their stuff. And then we need to tailor better for over the net participation than we have so far, not to exclude what we do here, but still. And then we need additional volunteers, and I'll try to advertise for that during the plenary as well. And
that doesn't mean you can't volunteer now.
Yes, yeah. Well, we have the blue seats already, so that's fine. And then we need to set up a mailing list and charter for the mentoring team. Maybe the mailing list is the step 1, and then the charter is actually the one, the ideal thing that we want to do with that in the future. So that's the main thing that we're discussing there. And we had many suggestions around improving the mentoring process, maybe a little bit more than the education part of it. I like the idea about using the group effect and building relationships, doing group exercises, taking into account the cultural aspects, get the volunteers on the registration form. That's great. And then for the education part, sort of the idea about this not being just for the newcomer, I think that resonated with me, at least, because I don't know how to do a Yang model for some thing for a network element, but I'm sure some other people at the IETF know that. So I would love to see that, actually, personally, and maybe the same thing applies for other things for other people. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think it's clear that we have some more work to do, and hopefully some more people to help us with that, and some discussion needed. Thank you.
And finally, if you haven't read the draft, please do, and please send us feedback if you're, if you can think about it on your way home, maybe. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for your great comments. Yeah. And please stay.